Now I've got to admit, I was on the fence for a bit about delving into these anamorphic lenses, but you know what? I finally took the plunge and snagged this pair. And let me tell you why I chose these bad boys. They are perfect for balancing on gimbals, and they're super portable too. Convenience is key, my friends. So I figured instead of blabbering about these lenses in front of a camera, I wanted to really put them to the test out in the field. Get a feel for them, you know. So that's exactly what I did. And boy, let me tell you, it was a blast. So let's talk about these Saturn lenses for a sec. They pack a punch with a 1.6 times anamorphic squeeze factor. And get this, they won't break the bank. At under $1,200, they're a real steal. It's crazy to think how far we've come in terms of pricing for anamorphic lenses. Back in the day, you'd have to cough up $3,000 to $4,000 just for the cheapest option. And don't get me started on those lenses that cost $10,000 to $30,000 a pop. Thankfully, times have changed, and now we've got these sweet, reasonably priced options at our fingertips. Talk about a game changer. Some of my favourite films of all time were shot on anamorphic lenses, like Pulp Fiction, Blade Runner, Inception, and The Creator. Now, what makes anamorphic lenses stand out is that they give you this oval-shaped bokeh, which is super distinctive. It's all thanks to these anamorphic elements that are tucked away inside the lens, kind of like magic cylinders that compress everything around them. And with the squeeze factor of 1.6, you're in for a treat. To really put it to the test, I took these lenses out for a spin, and let me tell you, the results were stunning. Daytime shots, nighttime shots, they all came out looking gorgeous. But hey, if you're new to the whole anamorphic lens scene, there's a few things to keep in mind. First off, aspect ratios. These lenses give you that wider than wide look, so you've got to adjust how you frame your shots to make the most out of that extra width. Planning is key too. With that wider aspect ratio, you need to be intentional about your compositions. And let's not forget about that beautiful bokeh effect. It's all about playing with depth of field to make your shots pop. Now here's the thing, to really unlock the full potential of your anamorphic lenses, you'll want to pair it with an external monitor like the Atomos Ninja 5. That way, you can see your footage in all its de-squeeze glory, right there and then on the screen. But I do have one gripe with this lens. The minimum focus distance, it's set at a pretty far 1 meter or 3 feet. Now cutting that in half would make a huge world of difference in usability, but good news though, you can work around this by using close focus diopter filters. Sure, it's a bit of a hassle, but trust me, it's worth it. Speaking of filters, I've dropped the link in the description below to a set of affordable diopters that I found handy. They'll give you that flexibility to nail those close-up shots while keeping everything in focus. Now, focusing with an anamorphic lens can be a bit trickier because of their unique distortion. You want to take your time and double check your focus, especially if you're shooting wide open. And yeah, that external monitor will come in clutch once again. Oh, and don't forget about lighting. Anamorphic lenses tend to crave more light, so you might need to beef up your setup with some external lighting. Or if you're rocking a Sony FX3 or a7S III, you're in luck. Their low light capabilities are a match made in heaven for this lens. Last but not least, post-production. You'll need to de-squeeze your footage to get that desired look. But don't sweat it, there's plenty of software tools out there to help you. And this is how I do mine. Alright, so here's the deal. Most editing software won't give you the option to automatically de-squeeze your footage to that sweet 1.6 ratio. But no worries, you can do it manually. Let's say you're working with a 4K 16:9 timeline. First things first, add your footage to the timeline. Then head over to the scale options. Now this part's important. Make sure to untick any uniform scale controls. Next up, adjust the scale height to 63.5. while still keeping the width at 100. Boom, there you have it. Your 1.6 footage is now properly de-squeezed. Now, if you're rocking a 16:9 timeline, you might notice some letterboxing with black bars above and below your footage. Not the end of the world, but if you want to clean it up, here's how. Navigate to your sequence settings and tweak your frame size. Pump up that horizontal frame size to 3840 pixels and the vertical to 1368 pixels. Voila. Say goodbye to those pesky black bars and hello to a clean de-squeezed timeline. Oh, and one more thing worth mentioning, I opted for the natural flare anamorphic versions of these lenses. You see, while those blue flares can look pretty cool, I found them a tad distracting for my taste. So if you're like me and prefer a more subtle, natural flare effect in your shots, you might want to consider going for that route too. Just a little bit of a tidbit for you. Alright, I know these lenses aren't exactly cheap, but overall these Saturn lenses are the perfect match for folks like us who love shooting with that expansive view without spending thousands upon thousands. With options ranging from 35, 50 and 75mm focal lengths, these lenses hit a sweet spot for anamorphic shooting. I'd really love to see a 135mm in the range, but that might be pushing the boundaries a bit too much. Fingers crossed on that one. Seriously, if you're on a tight budget and still craving that anamorphic magic for your projects, whether it's a short film or a feature-length movie, these lenses are where it's at. Personally, I'm over the moon with my purchase of these two anamorphic beauties. With a bit of planning and keen eye for detail, you can whip up visuals that make your jaws drop. And hey, if you're new to the world of anamorphic lenses, I hope these tips and tricks I've shared with you give you a leg up. Thanks a bunch for tuning in, folks. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more filmmaking shenanigans on my channel. Until next time, happy shooting.